Jake, I'm going to come to you first. Right, relax.
This is Fighting Words. I'm Karisa Maxwell, and I am joined by our senior combat writer, Andreas Hale, and senior combat editor, Tom Gray. Gentlemen, it is a very big week in boxing, whether you want to admit it or not. Tommy Fury and Jake Paul are finally getting in the ring. And the question that we ask every time Jake Paul gets in the ring is this fight good for boxing? Spar it out. I want to hear your take. Andreas, what do you think?
Of course it's good for boxing. I mean, look, you can call Jake Paul whatever you want, but people like boxing and like to watch people get punched in the face, and he attracts a younger demographic because boxing remains old and wrinkly and white for the most part in terms of demographic. If you can attract a younger viewer to boxing, why not? And then you can kind of bridge the gap with other fighters. You introduce the world to boxing. I think this is definitely a good fight for boxing. Of course, I know Tom, he's like a boxing snob. He's not going to feel the same way, but boxing is like a universal language. Fighting is a universal language. People like to see people getting punched in the face. And if it's somebody like Jake Paul, who a lot of people don't like and they want to see him getting punched in the face and he continues to win, people are going to keep watching. Then you're going to watch the undercards. Then you're going to learn about the people he's fighting. So, of course, it's good for boxing. It's better for Jake Paul, but it doesn't hurt boxing, not a single iota.
My take is I've got absolutely no interest in it whatsoever. But, white and wrinkly is probably where I fit into the demographic here. I just, to me, you're looking at two fighters that essentially are novices. Now, I come up as a writer covering boxing in Scotland and the north of England, top prospects. The difference between prospects and what you're watching at the weekend essentially is there's still craft with prospects. There's no craft here. I've never watched a full round of Jake Paul, but I've seen him knock out Tyrone Woodley, was it, with a right hand. And the punch literally travelled round the arena, stopped off for a drink, and hit this poor fella on the chin. And that's just indicative of the fact that the fella that Jake Paul was fighting has absolutely no idea what he's doing. Tommy Fury, for me, is part-time. He turned pro, I think, in 2018. He's had 8 fights, which shows you how seriously he's taken his career at the minute. So it's not something that I can give the time of day. Absolutely no interest.
But Tom, I mean, look, people don't care what people's records are when they're watching boxing. Like, we care, like, we love boxing. But for the most part, somebody that's tuning in to watch Tommy Fury, they hear the term real boxer and they go, oh, he's had a few professional fights, and they're intrigued by it. But boxing is boxing. I think we get too wrapped up in records and undefeated records and all these things. None of this stuff matters. When you talk about a novice, I've seen plenty of novices face pros and get destroyed. So it is what it is. It's a fight at the end of the day, and people want to see fights, and I think that's appealing to people.
Yeah, to be honest, Andreas, if you see a top quality pro knock off someone that shouldn't be in the ring with them, I would critique that as well. I wouldn't say that that's acceptable. I would basically call it for what it is, a horrendous mismatch. With this, both guys are evenly matched. They just don't operate at a level that I've got any interest in watching whatsoever.
Oh, well, I mean, it is what it is. Like, the kids will say otherwise. The TikTok generation says otherwise. Tom, I'm old too. It's like I'm not a spring chicken either, but I just know the sport needs to appeal to a wider and younger demographic, and Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are doing whatever they can do to get those eyeballs in the sport. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, drama and rivalry aside, as much as it pains you, I am sure, Tom, there actually is some weight behind this matchup, to the point where if Jake Paul wins, he will be ranked by the WBC. So what is the ultimate fallout from a Jake Paul victory and a Tommy Fury loss, and vice versa?
If Jake Paul wins, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that he gets ranked in the top 40 by the WBC, which I would need to see how many cruiserweights there is ranked by the WBC before I completely laugh out loud over that. I don't think it works. But, if he gets a top 40 rating, I think the next step is probably a top 15 rating. And I can see I can see Jake Paul fighting for a WBC title by 2024. If Tommy Fury loses this fight, I think he is finished. I just think the fallout from that would be catastrophic for his reputation. I don't know how you repackage him, but I definitely think you can repackage Jake Paul. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. He's got great people around him. He can always play the card that Tommy Fury was a professional boxer and he needs a bit more development. So that's the way I see it going. Disaster if Tommy Fury loses it.
Yeah, Tommy Fury's going to lose. I mean, he's not really a good fighter. His opponent's records, they stink.
Jake Paul is awesome, though. What a machine that guy is in the ring, right?
I mean, he's better than Tommy Fury. I mean, what do you want to do? The man fought Anderson Silva, who was arguably the most decorated striker in MMA history. Yes, Anderson is old enough to be Jake Paul's father, but the fact remains...
I'm the same age as Anderson Silva. I'm 47. He's 47 years old, and I get out of bed in 3 stages in the morning, right? So Anderson Silva is washed and doesn't even compete as a professional boxer. Next.
But Tom, Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who was a professional fighter. So it is what it is. Anderson Silva is better than everybody that Tommy Fury has fought. But the fact remains, look, if Jake Paul wins this fight and he gets ranked by the WBC, I don't expect him to fight like a top 5 cruiserweight because, one, nobody in the world knows who they are. Unless the hardcore boxing purists, we know who is ranked by the WBC, but the rest of the world doesn't care. I expect him to go fight somebody like KSI and make some more money. He's in this to make money. Maybe eventually he'll fight for a world title. It just sounds cool to have Jake Paul ranked by the WBC. WBC gives out belts like candy. The diamond belt, the money belt, the fish belt, the lobster belt. These belts don't even matter. But that's what Jake Paul's out to do, is just kind of get recognized by the WBC and then say, I'm a real boxer. That's what really matters to him. It's all smoke and mirrors, but boxing is a lot of smoke and mirrors. So it's good for Jake Paul. As far as Tommy Fury is concerned, yeah, if he loses, bye-bye. Go back to Love Island, do a reality show, go spar with your half-brother, do something else.
I hope after this PR machine that for your sake that Jake Paul wins this fight. I really do, mate.
Me too.
I think it's interesting that you bring up that the quality of Jake Paul's opponents, granted having no boxing experience before this, they actually do have fighting experience. Whereas Tommy's opponents may have had too much fighting experience. One of his opponents already came into the ring with 102 losses on his resume before he lost to Tommy Fury in points. So would you say that Jake Paul is actually his highest caliber opponent to date?
No, because even though you've got a fighter that's had 100+ losses, what you've got there is a journeyman who makes a living by fighting once every 3 or 4 weeks against a raw novice. They know how to keep their hands up. They know how to defend. They've probably not had a lot of stoppage losses. You can learn in the ring from someone who's had that much ring experience. And when we talk about having fighting experience, unless you're an actual boxer, unless that's your game, fighting experience, MMA experience in a boxing ring means very little. So I think that Tommy Fury has got the advantage in competition faced, even though that competition is extremely limited.
So Tom, if I come over, if I'm a plumber, I come fix your sink and it leaks. And it leaks 103 times that I have a leaky sink. But I'm a plumber. I stink at my job and I need to go find a new job.
It's a bit more nuanced than that. If you you get journeymen, you get prospects, you get contenders, you get champions, you get all-time greats. A journeyman makes a living, pays basically for his family by fighting every 3 or 4 weeks, making a couple of grand. That's his job. To make a prospect, to teach a raw prospect a lesson, not give him too much of a threat, but teach him a bit. And that's all this is. So Tommy Fury only had 12 amateur fights, I think. So he needs developed. You can't just throw him in like Lomachenko against world champions. Like he's totally at the bottom of the rung as a pro. So that's the guys he goes up against. It's pretty standard if you're a raw professional to go in with journeyman with losing records. That's just standard at the end of the day.
So the fact remains, like Jake Paul beat Anderson Silva, who beat a former champion, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and Tommy Fury's beat nobody. So it's
Anderson Silva is as old as Jurassic Park, man. Like there's just no. He doesn't compete in the right sport. That's the bottom line.
He beat Chavez Jr., who was a former WBC middleweight champion.
Chavez Jr., the same Chavez Jr. that ended up getting his watch stolen in Las Vegas after a fight. And in fact, I'll not even go there. Right?
I didn't say the man can protect his goods. I'm just saying he was a former world champion. He beat him. The fact remains,
guys, guys, we get it. Anderson Silva is old. Tommy is a joke. Jake's a joke. Does not matter. This fight, like I said, it does have weight behind it. This is a highly anticipated fight. They're going into the fight pretty even on paper. Tommy has 2 more fights. They both have 4 knockouts. Jake Paul has more rounds. It is even though Jake Paul is going in as the betting favorite. So with that being said, what is your prediction going into the fight Sunday night in Saudi Arabia? Will there be a knockout? Will it go the distance? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, this is going to be a knockout courtesy of Jake Paul putting hands on Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is not good. He hasn't fought in long fights. I don't think he's fought in a 10-rounder yet. His stamina, his conditioning is going to be something that is going to be in question. Jake Paul, for all intents and purposes, he's got a dynamite right hand. He puts people down with it. Tyron Woodley, yes, he's an MMA fighter, but he still got punched in the face. Tyron Woodley was used to getting hit with small gloves. Jake Paul knocked him out. He put Anderson Silva down. I'm not going to count Nate Robinson because he's a dunk contest guy. I don't know how he acts when he gets punched. I'm not going to count Anees Gibb because he, is his first fight. But Jake Paul can crack. I think Jake Paul knocks Tommy Fury smooth out and talks all the crap that he can, and then he moves on to the next thing. But yeah, this fight ain't going the distance.
If Tommy Fury leaves his chin out to dry, waits for 5 minutes for the right hand to come round and hit him, then Jake Paul could get the knockout.
That's what he's going to do. He's going to wait for it.
I don't care.
Regardless of who wins Sunday night, I am so excited to get this fight in the books because we have heard enough trash talking for long enough. Maybe we'll have a new ranked WBC fighter on Monday that Tom will begrudgingly have to write about. But either way, we will be covering it here on Sporting News. So make sure to watch the fight Sunday night in Saudi Arabia. This has been Fighting Words. I'm Karisa Maxwell, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.